Are you a current architecture student? Yeah. What would you say is the thing you most struggle with? Yeah, time management. Do you know that there's a way to do it differently? There's a way to do it without doing all-nighters? Hi, hello, and welcome to another video. If you're new here, then let me introduce myself. I'm Steph, and I have a tendency to dish out unsolicited advice to people, so I thought I'd make it into a YouTube channel. I like to call it life advice you didn't know you needed. I'm from Sydney, and I'm currently studying my Master of Architecture and working towards being an architect after a career change a few years ago. So some of my videos are tips for architecture students. This video is going to be about time management for architecture students, since architects are notorious for being really poor time managers. But some of these tips also apply to students in other fields, so feel free to keep watching. Also, some of these tips will just apply if you're just working on a project in general. Before I get started, I will give you some reasons as to why you should listen to me for this time management advice. As I said, architecture has been a career change for me, so I feel that I can bring a different perspective to things that compared to people that have only ever known the architecture world. Knowing a different context and coming from a different background helps me to be able to put things in perspective in a different way and to look at things more objectively. The culture of architecture can be pretty toxic, where all-nighters are the norm, and I think that it's time that we change that. Another reason you should listen to me if you value your sleep and sanity is because I passed my undergraduate architecture degree with a distinction average, and I didn't pull a single all-nighter. Not one. Yep, you heard me. Not a single all-nighter in 3 years. Sure, I had some pretty late nights, but not once did I see the sunrise while working on an architecture project. Some people say that they enjoy doing an all-nighter, but I'm here to tell you that it's not only really bad for you, but it's a bad habit to get into. Time management is a great skill to have, and if you want to be employed in the future, then being able to legitimately put that in your CV as an architect will give you lots of bonus points. So many people will tell you, oh, that's just the way it is, or that's just the culture, but seriously, ways and cultures shift and change, and I think it's about time that the same thing happened in architecture. Pulling all-nighters are frankly stupid, and it doesn't have to be the norm, and yeah, I'm just over hearing about it. Radio, okay, rant over, let's get on to the video. As you know, architecture is a creative field, and it's also one that tends to attract people with perfectionistic tendencies. And we all know that probably doesn't go well with time management. I mentioned this in my other video with tips for architecture students, which you can go watch later. I'll link it below. But one thing that will really help with your time management is acknowledging that design is never finished. Also, learning to dissociate your individual sense of worth from the project that you're working on can really help you take a dispassionate view and be more objective and more strict with yourself on time. The best thing you can do for your time management is to accept that what you produce will never be as good as you want it to be. It will never be completely finished, and it will never be perfect. Design is something that is always going on and always changing, and there's always room for improvement. It's never finished. Let it go, put it in perspective. The second best thing you can do for studying architecture and time management is to get a job. I don't mean get a job in a firm. I don't mean get an architecture job. Just get any job. Having another commitment in your life will help you to break down your week, break down your time, and it will force you to get things done because you will have less time to do it in if you have another commitment to go to. Also, having work and a job to go to that's separate from the uni work that you're doing will actually give your brain a little bit of time to rest from the project that you're working on, and maybe you'll come up with some better ideas. I know that I've had that so many times when I've gone for a run or I've gone to work, and yeah, an idea has just emerged. To give you an example of a good job to have that is not necessarily one doing architecture, because I know that jobs can be really hard to find as an undergrad without much experience. But I used to work in a tile shop, and getting to know some products that are going to be used in design and designing is really a good skill to have. There's lots of different suppliers for architectural products like flooring materials, different tiles, different glass, all these different materials that architects and designers are going to use and specify in their buildings. And it's good to have that background knowledge and just get familiar with the different kinds of products that are out there. So that's one idea if you're struggling to find an architecture job. But this is not a video about architecture jobs, it's about time management. And as I said, having a job, having another commitment will force you to get things done. It will make you take time off, and it will really help you. Just trust me on that. And also any job you can develop skills and learn people skills, learn organizational skills, learn how to write a good professional email. These are all things that employers will look for when you do end up going for a job in the field of architecture. Similar to that is to not sacrifice your hobbies and your friendships. Architecture can be really all-consuming at times, and getting in the creative flow is a really good feeling. But if all you're doing is architecture, then you might be neglecting some other things that you really should spend some time on, such as your hobbies or even with your friends and family. I know a lot of people have cancelled plans to keep working on their architecture project, but at the end of the day, it's not really worth it. If your project isn't perfect, you might miss out on creating great memories or having a really fun time that you're probably not going to get from sitting at home working on your project. So it's all got to be a balance. Alrighty, those were some general tips, and now I'm going to get onto some more specific things. Before getting started on any task, remove all distractions. For most people, that's going to be their phone. For me, I always have my phone on mute, so I don't get distracted by any buzz, any notification that's coming through the message or some other WhatsApp and email, because I know that for me, if it buzzes, I'm not going to be able to resist looking at my phone, and then next minute, like an hour and a half has gone by and all I've been doing is scrolling through Instagram or something. Not helpful. I have a smart-ish watch, so if someone's trying to call me, I get a notification that they're trying to call me. But all the other notifications, all the other buzzes and vibrations, they're all switched to mute if I'm trying to work. But generally, I just kind of keep my phone on mute because I can't hack like lots of people trying to reach me at once. Do not like. Phones are designed to grab our attention and keep our attention. So if you can remove that distraction, then you're going to be able to focus better. If there are certain people who you really don't want to miss messages and calls from, like someone important, someone who's trying to reach you, then you can customize the notifications. But an important person trying to reach you does not include like boy you met on Tinder. You got to be real with yourself. You got to set some boundaries. The next strategy that I like to use is to set mini deadlines for myself about the different components of the tasks that I have to get done. That involves, at the beginning, understanding what the full task is going to be and then breaking it down into smaller components. I'm a list writer and I like to write out and plan everything that I do. So for example, if I'm planning a model or if I'm doing a set of drawings, I will plan out each step that I need to do in order to complete the task. So let me find an example. So for example, for a model that I had to make last term, I had this list of stuff that I had to do. I had to do 2 elevation arches, 2 ceiling, stairs, vaults, half vaults for the entry, 10 columns, 1 front arch, 1 circulation arch, a vault beam, 8 columns, 8 auditorium fins, 6 auditorium vaults, and the walls. So I just wrote out the whole list and I ticked it off as I went, and it really kept me on track. Where I study at UNSW, they run 3 10-week terms in the year, which is really not enough time for any sort of project. But because it's so short, you have to be hyper organized. At the beginning of the term, they give you the task or the assignment, and usually there's a criteria or a list of deliverables that you're going to have to do. And I literally write all of them out and I assign them mini deadlines for when I want to get them done. I give them a week, like I want to get this done by week 5, this done by week 6, this done by week 7. And each week I write out a list of the stuff that I want to do, and anything that doesn't get done on that list rolls over to the next week. It's kind of like a bullet journal system, but with a task, breaking it down into smaller parts, and then the things that don't get done, they roll over. And you don't want to have too many of them roll over because you know that there's more coming later. As I'm working, I also like to check in with myself and double check just how long things are taking me. Time is a different thing when you're doing any sort of thing to do with architecture. Maybe this happens for other people too, but because it is a creative field, because it is a creative thing that you're doing, it's really easy to slip into the flow state, get really focused on something and really just drill down and want to make it look amazing. And for a lot of creative people, it happens in other creative fields too. It happens in like mathematics, it happens in science, it happens in fields everywhere. You are able to just keep going with that task and you lose all track of time. That is a dangerous place to be. The general rule of thumb that I've found with architecture is that for any task, If you think it's going to take a certain amount of time, it's going to take at least 3 times as long. I've only ever had one situation where a task has taken me significantly less time than I thought, and I couldn't believe that it was finished well ahead of schedule. It was just weird. So if you think something's going to take an hour, it's going to take 3. If you think something's going to take 3 hours, it's going to take 9. Build into your schedule a bit of a buffer so that you don't get caught out. If something is taking a really long time, then check in with yourself and be real. Take a step back and think, can I get this done in a different way, more quickly? Or should I move on to a different task that I can get done and then come back to this later if I have more time? It's all about balance, and also just training yourself to be hyper aware about what you have to get done and the time frame that you have to get it done in. One thing that really surprised me about studying architecture is just how little awareness architecture students have of time passing. You're really going to have to learn to keep track of time. I've been obsessed with time, productivity, efficiency ever since I was about 10 years old when I got my first ever wristwatch. There are no fewer than 4 clocks in the room that I'm sitting in, plus my watch, plus my phone, plus my computer, plus my tablet. You get the idea. I'm a bit obsessed with time. I use these devices to help me keep track of time, but if wearing a watch is not your thing, then you need to find out a different strategy that's going to work for you. A really common method that a lot of people use is the Pomodoro technique. I'm sure you've heard this term bandied around, but what the f is it? This method is where you work in small bursts and you take small breaks, and you continue that cycle for as long as you need to get the task done, or until you just get really tired and you just want to finish. There are different apps that you can download for your phone, and it sets it up for you and gives you little bells and reminders, or you can just use like your microwave timer, or you can use like maybe your watch or your phone timer. The idea is that you work for 25 minutes solidly, and then you take a 5-minute break. At the end of the 5-minute break, you repeat the cycle for at least 3 times. So you do I call them laps, so like 4 laps, and then you take a longer break, maybe 20-25 minutes, and then you do another 4 laps. And then in that time, you will have had a productive period of approximately 4 hours, which is quite a lot of time, and when you're really focused, that can be a good way of getting shit done. Earlier in the year, I found this technique really helpful because I just started my master's after taking a year off study. I was struggling to concentrate on the things that I had to do, so I used the Pomodoro technique to slowly chip away at the task that I had, and what do you know, it got finished. I am also a serial procrastinator, and I found that this technique was a really great way to get started because you really only have to commit to 20 or 25 minutes, and once you start, well begun is half done, as they say. Not true in architecture, well begun, good on you for starting. But if you're a procrastinator like me, then just getting started sometimes can be enough to get the ball rolling and keep working. Another method that I have developed for keeping track of time as I work is to use music. I know that a lot of people listen to music while they do work, but does it help you keep track of time? So I'm going to let you in on my method for how I use music to keep track of time and keep myself on task. Being a millennial at the elder end of the generation, I still remember with great excitement the thrill of Discmans. My Discman was my prized possession for so many years until it died and I mourned its loss, and I had to cross over to the dark side of iPods. One thing that a Discman really gave me was an appreciation for full albums. I really loved listening to an artist's full album from start to finish, and I attribute that to always listening to a Discman. So when I'm working on a big task and I need to make sure that I'm going to stay on track and keep track of time, I listen to albums from start to finish. I know that that's probably a pretty old-fashioned thing to do, but it really helps because I know that as soon as an album is finished, roughly anywhere between 40 and 50 minutes has passed, and I can double check the clock and really see how I'm going with certain tasks. This trick, though, only works if you have autoplay turned off. On Spotify, autoplay is something that is automatically turned on through your account that keeps recommending or keeps playing music that it thinks you're gonna like even after what you've selected is finished playing. This is it's a trap. It's a dangerous, slippery slope into endless hours just vanishing. By turning autoplay off and listening only to full albums, then at the end of each album you get an idea of how much time is going past, between 45 minutes and an hour. The same thing goes for podcasts of reasonable lengths. If you like to listen to podcasts while you work. Sometimes I listen to episodes of No Such Thing as a Fish, which are all under an hour, so I know that each time I hear the theme song, about an hour has passed, and that's a good way to keep track of time. Don't fall into the trap of watching Netflix or something while you're working. I know a lot of people that have done this while they're building a model, but if you can switch off the TV, actually get your model done, and then reward yourself with some Netflix, that's probably better, because if you're doing both at the same time, you're only going to be giving half attention to each thing, and that's not a very efficient way to work. If full albums are not your thing, if podcasts are not your thing, then maybe set up some playlists so that you know how many tracks are on there, and Spotify will tell you how long the playlist goes for, so you know that when that playlist runs out, that an hour has passed or 2 hours has passed. I'm also at the point now where I have certain albums that put me in a certain mindset for getting stuff done. One thing that I always do is save an album by Fortet called Pink. Is it Pink or is it Pinnacles? Pink by Fortet is the album that I put on when I'm getting towards the end, when I'm finishing off the model, when I'm finishing off the drawing set, because it's got these like really driving beats, and I know the tracks inside and out now, so I know that when I'm at like track 6, I know that when I'm at track 9, I know that I only have a little bit of time left to get these things done, and it really pushes me to get stuff done. So you can also psych yourself up using the same music that you're keeping yourself on track with. My final tip. Are you ready? Sleep. This is a controversial statement to make as an architecture student, as an architect, but sleep will help you to be more productive. It will help you to focus better. It will help you to get your work finished. If you don't sleep, you're going to be tired. If you drive anywhere, it's like the same as being really drunk. Drunk driving, that's bad. You don't want to put your safety and other people's safety at risk. As I said, it's really, really easy to be totally consumed by architecture and to let it overtake your life and really dictate your time. Flip that around. You tell architecture who's boss. You tell architecture when you're going to work, and you fucking sleep, because otherwise you're just gonna hurt your brain and your body and your mental health, and you're gonna just get in a state. It's not gonna be good. By the time you get to crit day, you're not gonna be able to string a sentence together to explain your project. So please, sleep and rest. Take time away from your project. Your brain will continue to chip away. The cogs will keep turning, and sometimes when you take your attention off something, that's when the solution appears, and then, yeah, you're in a good position. I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'll say it until I'm absolutely blue in the face, but studying architecture is really, really, really hard, and I'm afraid you're not going to get much sympathy from people who haven't experienced it. Don't let architecture consume you. You show architecture who's boss and who's in charge. Take control of your time so that you can work more efficiently and also still enjoy other parts of life. At the end of the day, once the semester is finished, no one will care if the drawing was perfect. No one will care if the model was pretty. What they will care about is whether you learn something and what you can take away from doing that project. Architecture is about having great ideas and also knowing how they can be realized. It's not necessarily about perfection, because design keeps going and going and going. When you think you're finished with something, there's still a way to develop it. Work on learning as much as you possibly can while you're studying, because you won't get time to work on the same great, wacky conceptual briefs that you have. Don't focus on making everything perfect. Focus on getting sleep, getting your work finished to a good enough point. I'm not saying like give up halfway. I'm saying get it to a point that you're happy with, and maybe adjust your metric for what's good enough rather than seeking perfection always. Especially if you're studying, you'll probably learn more if your project, if your drawings, if your model is not perfect. So those are my tips for time management. I hope that they've been helpful to you, and let me know in the comments below if you have others that you want to share with other students. If there's lots of other time management, or if I think of more things, I will do a part 2 to this video. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. That's really helpful to me because then I know what you guys want to see. If you want to try out any of these methods, these techniques, let me know what works, what doesn't work for you, and maybe you can come up with your own ideas to share with people. I've been Unsolicited Steph, you have been you, and I really hope that whatever project you're working on, you can find some good time management skills and techniques from this video. And until next time, bye!